Namaskar. Hello and welcome to 𝗖𝗼𝗎 channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Joining me today is Priyanka Dev, and we are going to be doing a bit of a role reversal here. She's going to be hosting this video, and I'm going to be explaining this video. It's a very important slide deck because this is probably the first time that the world gets to see where all George Soros has been using his money to fund, how his funding has affected the criminal justice system of the United States of America. We know that he has been involved in other countries, but this is the first time perhaps someone has taken an in-depth look at the funding of Soros. Also, do like this video, and we've got a bunch of reference links, about 15 or 20 of them in the reference section of description, and do go through those to get an more in-depth view of what are all the things that we are discussing here. So now let's welcome my host of the day, Priyanka Dev. Priyanka, namaskar and welcome to 𝗖𝗼𝗎 channel.
Namaste, Sree. Thanks for having me. And I guess I'm you right now, right? So I'm
Yes,
playing Sree
you
Iyer
are me and I am you.
for the
Yes.
next 30 minutes, which I'm very happy about. But Sree, I looked at the slide deck that you've prepared, and it is so in depth, and it is actually quite scary. Some of the things that are written, and we're going to talk a little bit about, and I hope to get into American criminal system. Our audience, it should be relevant to them, just because American criminal justice system, first of all, a lot of justice systems are modeled after America. Second of all, the impacts, because he is involved, as you said, in different countries, are worldwide. It's not just in America. So let's just start from the beginning, Sree, if you don't mind. The first
Not at
question I
all.
have is,
Yeah.
before we even get into this slide deck, how did George Soros become a billionaire, and now why is he getting into criminal justice systems? I mean, he has so much money. What is the relevance of this? What is the impact of this?
Um, First of all, how did he become a billionaire? He did
Yes.
a great short. He shorted the United Kingdom's pound, and that is where he made his big payday. And I'll not give you the entire details, but I'll keep it short. John Major succeeded Margaret Thatcher as the Prime Minister of England. And John Major, prior to becoming the Prime Minister, was the Chancellor of Exchequer, meaning the Finance Minister for India, the equivalent of Treasury Secretary in the United States. Now, he had a policy that the pound would have some sort of a peg with the European currencies. So EU had a certain model and they wanted to peg with that. Euro had not come yet. Euro was after that. So he wanted to basically have the pound pegged to a certain range of this system. Now, what happened was the reforms that had been put forth by Margaret Thatcher that actually hurt the United Kingdom's economy in a drastic way. Many of the public enterprises became private, but they were not used to working as a private enterprise. You have quarterly deadlines, you have all these different pressures and pulls. So a lot of tumultuous there were lots of churn going on in the United Kingdom industry, and they were also getting, not as economically viable as other countries were. So they were diversifying more and more into finance and so on. Long story short, John Major becomes the prime minister. And what happens is, because he had come to that on the basis of keeping the pound pegged with a European system, what happened was people said that this cannot be sustained. The UK is just not that strong enough
Mm.
to be able to sustain this. So then what happened was, Soros was among the first ones to figure out that he could essentially short the pound, meaning like he places a big amount of bet saying that the pound is going to weaken. If the pound weakens, he makes a ton of money. If the pound strengthens, then he loses his shirt. At that time, he was just another investor running his own hedge fund company, but he had the sixth sense about how things were headed. Probably he had friends in the United Kingdom industry who told him that this cannot be sustainable. Because remember, the pound is fully convertible. So when you have full convertibility, anybody can go to any bank teller and say, I want my pounds to be exchanged to dollar or something else, and so on. So long story short, as Soros predicted, the pound could not sustain that number, and he shorted the pound. and they had to raise the interest rate to 18%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Bank interest rate 18% before they threw in the towel. John Major was finished as a prime minister, and the hedge fund company, his share was 20%, and he made $1 billion. Okay, so that means the hedge company that he was representing put in 5 billion into it.
Mm-hmm.
So he made a lot of money. Now, what do all billionaires do? They have big yachts. They'll go and buy islands. They'll have Aspen. They'll have
And they'll control politics.
yes. But this man had a slightly different take on life. He wanted to have open society, open borders. Nobody should be constrained by borders. Anybody should be able to go anywhere. And in along the line somewhere, he also developed some other radical ideas. And that's what we are going to take a look at it today, because I have a slide deck that kind of walks us through what all happened in various cities of United States. In fact, two things happen, and I'll explain those things when I come to the relevant cities. Let's get the slide deck going, please.
It really is a fantastic slide deck, Sree. It's very detailed and it's quite concerning.
Yeah, so what Soros did was he said, okay, so how does the American criminal justice system work? And viewers, some of you may know this thing, but I need to explain it to those who are probably not in touch with this. So what happens is, see, there is some crime committed, right? The police goes and solves the crime. And after you have solved the crime, what happened? The person who committed the crime has to be given the punishment. Now, at that point of time, there are a sequence of steps that the police has to follow, because the American legal system is very rigid. For example, you have to read, before you make an arrest of somebody, you have to read him or her the Miranda rights. What Miranda rights is, you have a right to a lawyer. Anything you say, I'm not saying the entire thing, I'm just giving you the salient points. Anything you say will and can be used against you in a court of law. You have to read that rights before you let them speak anything. If you don't do that and they start saying something, that evidence is inadmissible. So whenever the police department will go to the legal department of a particular city, you take LA, for example, and many of you viewers, you should watch the series called Bosch. I was telling you about Bosch, right?
I still haven't watched it.
No problem, because it's not just this one. LA Law was another series that came about 35-40 years ago. Fantastic piece of fiction, legal fiction. So that there you tell you the detective is the one who usually solves the thing, and then they will go and present the case to the district attorney and say, okay, this is the case, and the district attorney makes a call. Is this something that I can get a conviction on? Why is the district attorney interested in getting as many convictions as possible? Well, there is a clue there. What happens to a district attorney, especially when he's getting elected, and in a state like California, you can get elected for 2 terms. Let's say one term is 4 years. After 8 years, what happens to the district attorney? He needs to have an upward mobility, right? What does the district attorney has as an upward mobility? He can enter politics. He could run for the mayor of the particular city of which he was the DA. Again, that happens in Bosch. I was trying to kind of give you some hints. Do watch that thing. It's compelling viewing, 7 seasons. I think one season will take you 10 hours. So, I mean, you can binge watch it, because once it grips you, it's amazing. Anyway, so the district attorney wants to run for office. So how does the district attorney run for office? He says, I was tough on crime, and here are my statistics. So many convictions, blah, 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 blah. Therefore, I'll clean up the city. Never mind what the truth is, but this is what the story they'll pay. So into the political system of United States, people can enter in 2 ways. One is doing this criminal legal system. The other is using the standard politics. Like, for example, somebody runs for city council. In fact, before that, they run for the school council, city council, run for the mayor, and then from there run for governor, and so on and so forth. So that is the other route that people take. So this is why the district attorneys always want only winnable cases. Now, George Soros figured out that, so these guys are very clear about taking only those cases that they can win. What if I fund a set of people who will not take any case to the court at all? You will win or lose only if you take the case to the court, right? If you don't even take the case to the court, then where is the question of winning or losing?
That's right.
This This is the strategy that he has used, and we're going to see some cities now with disastrous consequences. Next slide, please. So he became a major donor, and he figured out that it did not cost a lot of money to fund district attorney elections. And why do I say that? Because the district attorney is, they have to mobilize maybe $250,000, not a big amount. If you think of US Congress, right, you need a minimum of, I think, $3 million or something in that ballpark. Senate needs a much higher number. It all depends upon what, how many people that you are going to be addressing, the advertising, the mobilization, all the other things that you need to do. So he said that, okay, why don't I handpick the district attorneys and I'll fund them. Now, funding is dicey. There are two ways to fund it. One is they have something called as pass-through corporations, and open society foundations does not directly give the money. There is always an arm's length, smoke and mirror stuff. They place the money in some other company. That company will go through a shell and LLC and so on and so forth. Finally, all said and done, the district attorney candidate gets the money. So this is a sleight of hand, viewers. In fact, in India also, because they have actually now banned the electoral bonds, I'm afraid the same kind of thing will happen in India also. It was a major victory for George Soros that he got the Supreme Court to cancel the electoral bond system. Because with the electoral bond system, at least you knew the amount of money that came. You may not know who the donor was.
Coming back to DA elections, so when you're talking about him swinging and funding people that support his version of justice, just how many people are we talking about, and across how many cities are we talking about?
15 or 20, and we are going to go through those things now. I'm going to quickly go through each. There are a fair amount of slides here, so I'm going to just go through those things. Next one, please. So here we have 4 cities, very important cities: New York, Alvin Bragg, Kim Foxx in Chicago, George Gascon in Los Angeles, and Larry Krasner in Philadelphia. So all these people, he calculated that he could essentially make them do his bidding, essentially the concept of open society. But in some cases he was successful, in others it was a disaster. Alvin Bragg, New York. Look at the kind of cases that they brought against Trump. On the other hand, the genuine cases where illegal immigrants are coming and trashing people's property, those cases are not being taken up. So you have a double whammy going here. In the case of
whammy, it's actually a single whammy, just in one direction. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, the genuine cases don't win.
Yes.
So we have to take a look at some of the individual cases. Where were the problems for these 4 candidates? Next one, please. So initially, Soros thought that the American prosecutors, like the district attorneys, had broad discretion on when to decide not to prosecute cases. So the system itself has some checks and balances. Unfortunately, it doesn't penalize a district attorney for not taking a case in front of a court. This is the flaw he identified, and he used that to full effect. I'll give an example. In the state of California, because viewers, we are talking about mayors of cities, but at a state level, this has even more disastrous consequences. What happened in the case of, for example, Cisco caste discrimination suit? What happened? The Civil Rights Department of California did not do its homework. What it did instead was it took a motivated report done by a company called Equality Labs, funded indirectly by you know who, and they basically said that this is the law, and they basically charged 2 engineers who are managers now of saying that you essentially discriminated. They didn't even go through the proper process. So you had, on the one side, people not wanting to take genuine cases. On the other side, there were people who are willing to make a case out of nothing. That case is still going on. The Cisco has not agreed to settle with CRD. CRD desperately wants a win, and Cisco is saying, no way, Jose. And this is going on still. And they had to drop the charges against the 2 individuals that they had moved against. In fact, in some cases, some of the parts of the case, they had to pay sanction fines also. But CRD isn't stopping. All they did was they changed a couple of their prosecutors. Next set of idiots have come in here. I can only tell them that because you didn't apply your mind when you frame the charges. That's why I'm calling you an idiot. That's all. Okay, so this is the thing that he has exploited. Go to the next slide, please. If you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, so here we're on the next slide. You're talking about a case-by-case basis. Now, when you are talking about, I'm talking about the third point, that Soros was correct in his assessment of the negative discretion of chief prosecutors. This Cisco case is obviously one of them. Can you name some of the other cases? Because it's alarming, and you know what I'm thinking about in my head is, why weren't these cases in media? Why didn't they
Very
appear
true.
in mainstream media? Because these are national level cases. Cisco was definitely a national level case. Word spread, but it was by and large spread by other foundations and other activists who stepped in to help, including, I remember, Hindu American Foundation, several other people who were helping with that. But this was by and large ignored by mainstream media. So just how many other negative discretion cases are we talking about? Because the consequences were disastrous for those two individuals. I mean, whatever they had worked for, I mean, they were traumatized after it, clearly.
Priyanka, this is easy. Look at what is happening with Hunter Biden. They have not brought any charges against him. First, they said that his laptop was not his laptop. Finally, they agreed that it was his laptop. There's a ton of evidence there. Nothing has been brought against him. You take a look at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar's case, she has committed immigration fraud. She has also committed, I think, I mean, this is what the data points to, that when she came into the United States, she falsified her name. Not only that, she married her own brother who was living in United Kingdom, so that that person could, on the basis of getting a green card of being married with her, came down to the United States and then went to school, got a degree, all at the taxpayer's expense. And then what happens? Voila, she divorces him. So she was married to one guy. That person is divorced, and then this her own brother, blood brother, same father, same mother. Let me be very clear. This case, Federal Bureau of Investigation, this became an FBI crime because of immigration fraud, which is for life. This is not going to go away for life. And the tax things, maybe there is a time statute of limitations. They may not be able to charge her on the tax fraud. She also committed income tax fraud. So all these things, there are like a whole slew of charges against her, and none of them have been brought into a court of law. Why? What does she have? In fact, people of Somalian origin in Minnesota, they are scared to talk against her because evidently she has a goon squad that physically hits anybody who raises even their voice against her.
That's true.
So these are all some of the things. These are the big enchiladas, Priyanka. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, take the other side. Trump. They could not establish that he committed any kind of a malfeasance in these checks that he paid, and yet they've already prosecuted.
That's going on. That's all that's going on in these courts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even negative discretion at this point, it's just stupid discretion at this point.
Right. So there, Alvin Bragg was involved. Bragg was involved there. So, okay, next slide, please.
Now, when we go to, sorry, Sree, just to interrupt you before you start,
go ahead.
Because you give a very holistic view. But now, when we are talking about these sorts of cases, right? Most chief prosecutor, the point that gets to me is the second point right here, that despite how high profile and obvious these negative discretion cases, I'll just call them negative discretion cases for now, are, but like Ilhan Omar, Biden, right? Biden Jr., these chief prosecutor elections actually were in fact very, very low key. I mean, they just came, they went, they're in office now, they're in power now, whatever. And, it wasn't reported anywhere, wasn't talked about. It was almost as if do it as quietly as possible. Do you think that this was done on purpose?
I think so, because it's the same person. It is the same hand that is feeding into all these cases. I mean, let's move on. And I can tell you, this guy funded $1.7 million into the kitty of defense attorney Larry Krasner's first campaign. I mean, again, this is 2-3 years later, they're back again, back with a bowl. He has donated $100 million to the Democratic Party, Priyanka. $100 million. And then there is another separate chest of $120 million, which will be given on a case by cases in district by district, depending on the need.
But you know what, Sree, when we're talking about Krasner, since you mentioned him, right? And I think this is on a slide of yours, but
Yeah.
actually some of the prosecutor wins were questionable, right? Because it turns out that he won, at least in Krasner's case, he won a certain percentage of the vote with only with a very, very small voter turnout, right? He
Yes,
won
yes, yes,
38%
yes.
of the vote in an election with only 17% voter turnout.
There
So
you go. I got the slide for you. 38% of the
got the
vote in an
slide. There we
election.
go. Are my
Yeah.
numbers right? Yeah, 38 and
Yes,
17.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So didn't people call this out? Or were people too scared to call it out at that point?
Um, all this happened in a COVID era where people were scared to come out and vote. And again, one strange thing that I have to tell all our viewers, do you know that the right to vote is not there for every US citizen? Did you know that, Priyanka?
No.
No, it is determined by the place you live. They can say that you do not have a vote, you don't have a right to vote, and there is nothing you can do. It is not enshrined in the Constitution. So the other thing is enshrined. In order to vote, you have to be a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
But the right is not a guarantee. And the United States Congress has just passed an act called SAVE, SAVE, and
That's
you
right.
guys can look it up. That essentially mandates that every person voting for the president has to be a citizen of United States. Arizona has a very interesting law, Priyanka. No ID required for presidential vote. ID required for all local elections. United States is really a union of states, where
Yeah,
each
really
state,
is.
down to each county, sometimes can decide what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. But in this case, that's disastrous and works in Soros's favor, right? Forget COVID.
Right, right.
Forget, that time everyone was a little hesitant and we were all online at that time for the most part. If we just seems that, do you feel that all of these were timed? Because it seems like he's been doing this for a long amount of time. It seems like these chief prosecutor wins are happening slowly but surely. He's putting a lot of funding in candidates that he feels will support him and that are supporting him. Is this something that you feel that him and his son now, who runs the Open Society Foundation, continues to do?
Yeah, it's been there for a long time. It has been under the surface. Now it
Long
is starting
time
to
means
come
how
out.
long? How long are we talking about?
I'm at least more than a decade. I'll give you an example. I am very clued in on California politics, so I can tell you an example. Gavin Newsom is termed out, meaning like you can only be a California governor for 2 terms. Then you have to demit office. You can come back for a 3rd term after a gap, but not back to back. You cannot be back to back 3 times. So he has termed out. Now the person who's the lieutenant general is a presumed successor, because California is a 70% Democrat state. 7-0. I mean, no contest. You don't even have to show up. So to make things easy or interesting, today the primaries are joint primaries. Democrats and Republicans go for primaries. The top 2 finishers will duke it out. So you could have the top 2 finishers as Democrats, which is what happens in most cases. So we have some very interesting politics. But the lieutenant general now, it's a lady, I don't remember her name, but she is a hand-picked Soros appointee. Imagine now, you're not talking about district attorney level. You're talking about one step away from the governorship of the most populous state of United States, 6th or 7th in terms of GDP. If you consider California as a country by itself, its GDP would be like 6th largest in the world.
Yeah. So she's a handpicked candidate. What are her what happens next? Let's just talk. I want to explain this to the audience that may not be so familiar with this process. But what happens next? So there's a handpicked candidate here. Everyone knows by and large, at least on this channel, whoever's watching, and more people should watch, everyone knows here that she is a handpicked candidate. What happens next? Why doesn't she get called out? And does she win?
Well, she's going to win, no doubt about that, unless she decides to not contest. That can happen. A lieutenant governor not wanting to contest, I don't think so, but it could happen. Now, if he comes to power, what's going to happen? I'll give you an example, real life example. Today in Gavin Newsom's California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, many bigger cities, Stockton, probably Sacramento.
Yep.
If a crime is committed less than $900 or $950 from a supermarket, from a store, the police will not register that as a complaint. $950. Imagine if 10 people hit a store one day, they'll be wiping out the profits for the month.
Yeah, exactly. And no one can
This is
do
today.
anything about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is today under Gavin Newsom, they're not able to prosecute. And so what has happened? The result of that is in Union Square, which is a very iconic, it's like Times Square of New York, Manhattan. Union Square is an area in San Francisco. It's very iconic. You have Macy's Parade. You often see that. And a bunch of other big shops. All of them have closed. All of them. You cannot just afford to be in business.
Yeah.
So this is what has happened. Second, there's an even more extreme case, again under Gavin Newsom. Why I'm pointing out to that case also is because this will become the norm. What happens is there is a liquor store manned by two brothers or two family members. Okay, so this one guy comes in and he starts, taking out the more expensive liquor bottles from the glass case. He breaks down the glass case.
This is a real case that we're talking about.
It's a real case I'm talking about. It's a real case I'm talking about. So they are begging him not to do that, and looks like he's a serial thief. He has come many times and he has broken the glass and he's taking all the more expensive liquor and he's loading it up. Now, what happened was he was busy doing that. One of the two members in the manning the store, one of them went to the back room, came out with a stick, pretty hefty stick, about 2 inches thick diameter, and he started beating up this guy.
Yep.
And once the beating happened, the second guy also joined, and essentially on the pain of the blows, the guy ran out.
Yeah.
You know what happened? Within half an hour, the police were there to investigate them.
That's madness.
First of all, they are not able to file a complaint for loss of revenue because if they second of all, they are being investigated. They are being interrogated.
Yep.
So what is a person to do?
Basically, what is going on? What the heck is going on right now? But Sree, the end of your presentation, I want to get to that with what is going on right now. Let's talk a little bit about Soros's son, because Soros is what, 90 plus years old now? I don't know how old the guy is, 96?
He's in his 90s. He's in his 90s. We are going to go a little bit back and forth here because what she's coming to is a very important point. This also is not good news for Indian Americans.
Yeah. This is the new, I like the title of this slide. The new development is basically Alex Soros has gotten engaged. So why don't you talk to us, Sree, a little bit about this? Because I'll just leave the question to you. Why is this not good for Indian Americans? Why is this not good for India?
Two things. Huma Abeydeen was a former aide to Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
And she is closely connected with Muslim Brotherhood, and also she is of I think she may have been born in Pakistan, if I'm not wrong. So there are some very strong connects there, and a very pronounced anti-Hindu, anti-India attitude. And Soros has been funding what I would call as alphabetic soup of organizations. Why I say alphabet soup is because these people will have one or two words: American, Muslim. Using these two words, they'll keep on coming up with new combinations. ISNA, Islamic Society of North America. IAMC, Indian American Muslim Council. ICNA, Islamic Center for North America. CAIR, Council of American Islamic Relations, right? So all these things, I lump them together as alphabet soup because somewhere along the line you will see that the Soros Open Society Foundation has put money in there. I'll give you another example. Hindus for Human Rights. It's an organization which sounds Hindu, but it is funded by Soros, and it's run by a person called Sunita Vishwanath, who has been working with Soros for donkey's years.
Yeah.
So when you look at the foundation name, Hindus for Human Rights, and the face of that is Sunita Vishwanath, we think that, oh, this must be genuine.
Yeah.
So there are so many such things.
Far from it. And even in India, it was a very known fact and it made headlines. I was there in India at the time, but I believe his name was Salil Shetty, who is
Yes,
the if I'm not mistaken, vice
India chief.
president
Yeah,
of Open Society Foundation.
right.
I think he was the vice president, yeah, or is. I'm not sure now. I haven't checked, but he was part of many things that created division and discord in India, including CAA, including farmer protests. So indirectly, Open Society Foundation is funding divisive activity in the form of Shell, in the form of from here to there, in the form of whatever. And its people are very active. Is this lady, Huma Abeydeen, is she active? And I just, Sree, my first question is actually, I just wonder how these two met. what, what was the first date like?
This marriage was not made in heaven. This marriage was made in some deep state office where there was a meeting and they said, this sounds like a good
a lot of
combination.
lines, borders between,
Yes.
right? I just wonder what that first date conversation is, because there's quite an age difference between the two as well. Huma Abeydeen, now you have the ages on this slide. She's in her late 40s, 47. Soros' son is in his late 30s. Now, this sort of partnership, since his son is now running this foundation, her alliances, her connections, what does it mean for Indian Americans? And I just want to put a disclaimer on this. We're not here. I don't think the talk is about being against any religion or being for any religion. It is against being against radicalism. That's what we're talking about. It's being against divisive activity. What is the danger here? What do all us Indian Americans, people living, NRIs living in America right now, people in India, what do we need to watch out for here?
Well, if you are going to a university campus, if your kid is in the campus, and sometimes the way they went after the Jewish kids after the October 7th incident, it has died down now, not because of any change in heart. It's just that the campuses have shut down for summer. Once fall comes, wait till fall comes. This will be back again.
Yeah.
So all those things, it doesn't matter which campus, small, medium, large, all of them had similar colored tents, and all these tents came up overnight. How can a student come up with an identical set of 30 tents, 50 tents? Clearly somebody has managed it. Somebody has been funding all this stuff. Today I'm hearing that Rahul Gandhi wants to start a railway strike sometime around September, just before the elections for Maharashtra are going to commence.
Yeah.
So anytime you want to start a protest, then what happens is, first of all, the government is on the back foot. They don't want to be like dictatorial and snuff it at the first attempt. They want to try and let them, vent or whatever. But this fellow,
elections are October 15th onwards. So if he starts it in September, it gives him enough momentum that by the time assembly elections are there, protest is in full force, full form, at least getting full media attention.
Did you follow that news? He went to actually shoot with who he thought were locomotive drivers, but then they were all paid professionals in uniform, and the real driver once came up and said, "This is all a fake. They are shooting it somewhere. It's not even in a loco yard." So they do all these kinds of things, and you have to be aware of where things are coming from. Certainly, educating people is going to be helpful. We have about 5 more slides, and we're already 35 minutes into the program. I don't know if you want to continue or not, but maybe 1 or 2 slides where there are some important conclusions that we can just draw from what happened. I'll just whiz through these things. Which city? Because almost every city has been impacted by this.
Let's do it. Go to the next slide.
He has backed candidates in Manhattan, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, Portland, San Francisco, St. Louis, Dallas, Tampa, Denver, Orlando, and Northern Virginia suburbs around DC. I mean, he hasn't left any city.
Yeah. And those are key areas when we're talking about Northern Virginia suburbs. Those are very,
Right,
very key areas around DC. So that is
right,
also significant. Is it? I mean, there's not one major city that he's not left. Maybe
correct,
a
correct.
few in the Midwest, but then I feel it's just a matter of time.
Right. And if you look at what happened, there were some things that he thought would actually help people, but the reverse happened. For example, in poor cities, homicides have spiked. And now what we are seeing is that the murder rates are going through the roof. This is where the, people don't charge you. You know the guy has committed murder, and then the district attorney says, no, I won't charge him. The George Floyd case, the one that was like the Black Lives Matter, the point from where it took off. Did you know that he died because he used to be a fentanyl user? It was not because somebody had his knee against his throat.
Hmm.
But that report came when? Like 2-3 years after the case. Yeah, way later.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
maybe he was not even interested. So it just
Yes.
slipped by.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So pandemic plus these kinds of prosecutors has really made things really bad. What is happening today? Real estate prices are crashing in San Francisco. San Francisco was deemed one of the most expensive areas to live in. Prices are crashing there. Same thing with Austin. And you have here Mike Schmidt, who's the Portland's mayor. Portland is a bicyclist town. I don't know if you've been there, Priyanka.
I have.
Beautiful town.
Yes.
Everywhere people are biking, very health conscious, and it's also the most liberal. There are areas in Portland that even the police don't dare go.
Mm-hmm.
It's that bad now.
Jeez.
So when you have such kinds of things, what do? Progressive cities like Baltimore, Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, everywhere you are seeing mass shootings. Somewhere along the line, this October 7th thing has made people think that, oh, the DA is not going to prosecute us. Imagine the kind of power you would think. I
Yeah.
don't like this guy, I can go settle it with a gun.
Yeah. And it's funny to think that those that raided the Capitol, they're still sitting in jail, federal prison.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes,
the irony
yes.
of the whole thing. I mean, if you're going to
Very
prosecute objectively and prosecute all. Don't just prosecute or don't prosecute anyone. But it's alarming just how polarized even prosecution has become, which is it's one of the three branches of the government. So if one of those three branches are infiltrated, if the presidency is infiltrated, if it's polarized, what does that do for the rest of the country? I mean, it's just citizens are sitting ducks over here, right?
and somewhere he thought that he could permanently make changes in the role of district attorneys, where the bar to bring somebody to the court will be raised so high that most of the crimes would go unnoticed. That has unfortunately backfired. Now Kim Foxx of Chicago said that she's not going to be running again. Kimberly Gardner in St. Louis, I'll get the picture of hers.
Yep.
It'll come up in a minute. She's also not going to be running. In San Francisco, the voters recalled 𝗤𝙑 𝗼𝗠. She was
I think
he
that was
was in
less than a term, right? She didn't even serve
yeah,
the term. Yeah,
right.
that's
Didn't even recall usually means that you are before your term is finished,
yeah,
you will not be you will be
that's
recalled.
right.
And this guy has lost. George Gascon has lost. I'm sorry, I didn't say lost. He narrowly missed the recall. You had this other lady called Kshama Sawant, another Soros person, barely missed recall. I think she's not running for office. She was hoping to step into Pramila Jayapal's shoes, and when Pramila maybe was going to run for Senate or something, and far-fetched dream. I think it's all done now. I don't think they're going to go any far.
I
So
don't think
any further? Yeah. So Marilyn Mosby has won lost the primary election in Baltimore. You also have these two, Rachel Rollins in Boston, and she resigned after an ethics investigation. This
Yep.
ethics investigation is a big deal. I'm not even talking about what is happening in Atlanta and Georgia. That is a case on its own where you have some very, very interesting liaison. So we're not even looking at that. These are the ones where there is proof available that these were indeed funded by Soros. Aramis Ayala in Orlando declined to seek re-election.
Yep.
And then we have Tori Salazar in Stockton. She was
Yep.
defeated in primary. Florida governor removed Tampa's Andrew Warren.
Mhm.
So the Republican governors, they are also pushing back quite hard. But if you look at the cities that I said, most of them are Democrat ruled. So
Yeah.
they have not been able to make, except for maybe Austin. Austin was, of
Yeah.
course, Republican ruled.
Would you say that
Except for
the plan of Soros that backfired in the, I mean, he won the battle but not the war. Do you feel that because the pushback has been very strong, which is
yeah,
sort of the ray of hope that this sort of nonsense doesn't continue? Is this a plan that you feel is going to continue? He's still going to try, or is this just something that backfired?
I think he's going to try
Mhm.
because
Why do you say
first of
that?
all, Alex Soros is not George Soros. Alex Soros is even more politically what should I call, aggressive,
Mhm.
and it's his way of doing things. He could take a more aggressive stance. What has happened, Priyanka, is that the United States presidency is decided in 6 states, and in those 6 states, about 20 counties. If you can guarantee a certain outcome in those 20 counties, it's bye bye for the loser. So that has to change. I'm hoping in 2024 that even lifelong Democrats votes Republican because they're just disgusted. This happened in 2016 in the 2 states of Michigan and Wisconsin. These were solid Democratic states, and they voted Republican. That's why Hillary lost.
Yep.
So it could happen. I mean, if something like that happens, then Soros could be in trouble. Also, viewers, remember one thing: none of these things could be termed illegal. There are loopholes. If there are no loopholes, they'll find a law or create a law that will give them the loophole. So
That's
this
right.
is not going to be easy. You can't send them to jail based on this.
Mhm.
Of course, an aggressive prosecutor could, but essentially, this is what the problem is.
Yeah. Yep. Well, with that being said, Sree, I should have introduced you like this, but Sree Iyer is also a very good and published author and expert on American politics. So I would love to have more discussions like this. Please leave your comments in the comment section. Let us know if you enjoyed this, because this was really important information. This is information that doesn't come on mainstream media. This is valuable research that Sree Iyer has taken time to do and shared with us in a wonderful slide deck. So I want to thank you for that, because it was enlightening for me. I mean, I felt I wasn't even anchoring the show. I was just asking you questions because I was curious to know the answer as well. So it is really fantastic information. Please leave your comments below, and we'll see you next time. We hope to have more discussions like this. Sree, thank you so much for your insight and for all the research that you did, because I know the amount of research it takes to make a slide deck like that and to make some of the statements that you did, which were strong statements. But that is what your channel is known for, and that is why it's so popular. So thank you for having me host the show, and I'll leave it to you for the last word.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.
Namaste.